How do you see international collaboration being something that could aid the goal of what you're trying to create?
Last year, I was fortunate to visit 11 different countries as a result of a Churchill Fellowship and research public transport accessibility. Ignoring just public transport accessibility, talking in general, irrelevant of where you are. We're all facing a lot of the same issues, if not the same, right? How do we go to school? How do we access information? How do we make public transport better, period, regardless of disability or abilities? How do we make our products and services more environmentally friendly? And as a result of my trip last year, it has been affirmed and reaffirmed and reconfirmed that it doesn't matter where you live in the world, public transport does not work for persons who have a disability. Unless you're a fully body able person, and I know that that's not technically a term because all of us have something, and unless you live in that city and you know the system inside and out, you're a stranger in a new city, you're a stranger in a new neighborhood because some things are a little bit different. And I think we can learn from each other because while the issues are the same, the executions and the ideas that come from those issues are all different. For example, in Australia, it's very common for people who have a disability to hold booklets that you can flip the numbers up, and you hold it up, and you select the number that you want for buses to stop. Whereas in the UK, for example, that is an option, but a lot of bus stops have bike tracks in front of them, so you can't actually stand where the bus will see you because otherwise you'll get hit by a bike. And obviously they have to come up with different solutions. And then you go to Japan, and then you go to Germany, and then you go to Sweden, and it's a completely different environment.
Let's save the world together. I'll come with you.
It's a big ask.
And I would love to unpack being someone with lived experience who's trying to create apps and startups that are trying to create impact in this space and make a more accessible future. How do you actually go at approaching accessibility internally and with your actual products?
If you talk to somebody who knows about accessibility, it's very easy because you can say, hey, the benefits are these, and these. And they're like, oh, fantastic. Yeah, I thought about these as well. And we can help other people and so on and so forth. But as a person who has a disability, at the beginning, when you first meet somebody, oftentimes people say, oh, is that really a problem? I have never heard of it. And you have to get over that hurdle of just because you haven't heard of it, it doesn't mean that it isn't a problem. And you can have very positive responses once you sort of talk about it and say, well, actually X amount of people in Australia and X amount of people across the world face that issue. Or you can say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, we don't see it, don't worry about it. And going past that initial sort of response, oftentimes investors, I find they want a quick return. So, they give you $1 million, for example, or 100,000, and they say in, 10 months, I want, 10% of that returned to myself or something to that effect. What we're doing, at least with Hailo and with EyeSyght, it's a broad approach to make public transport systems accessible and screens in general accessible. It doesn't happen overnight. There are many moving components. So it's just handling those expectations and trying to relate things to what people have experience with. Bus drivers, for example, we give them a bad rap because I missed my bus, but it's not true. A lot of demands are placed upon themselves, and it isn't their fault. The system is just not designed to help them out. For example, there are cities in the world where if a bus driver falls behind schedule, they get their pay deducted. So oftentimes they're forced to not help people because they have to feed their family, right? And it is all those conversations that you say, wait, hang on a minute. If we can do this, it means that they won't have to worry about that, or we can save the government money, and so on and so forth. So it's just adapting those conversations. And, well, sometimes it goes well, and sometimes it fails miserably, and people don't care about people with disabilities.